Good afternoon, students. This is your Prezi. Make sure that you complete the whisk because it is due tomorrow before the test. Moving right along. The title of this video or this screencast is Earth's Layers, and let me make it through the presentation before the phone rings one more time. Alfred Wegener published an article in his time called The Origins of Continents and Oceans. In this article, he gave evidence to the world that he suggested, or of the suggestion or the consideration that the continents were once joined together. He found identical fossils. One of the things that the article mentions is that he found identical fossils of plants and animals on the Atlantic coast of South America and the Atlantic coast of Africa. He suggested that these plants and animals that he ran into were not able to have crossed the Atlantic Ocean on their own. So once again, he suggests that continents were joined together. He found also evidence that there were glacial deposits in South America, India, Africa, and Australia. And South America and Australia are divided between the Atlantic Ocean and the Indian Ocean. So because we know that the oceans are not able to freeze over, once again, because he found glacial deposits all throughout, he was able to further suggest that the continents used to be joined together. He suggested that in our world, the 7 continents as we know them now used to be one big landmass, a supercontinent, which he called Pangea. In this, we will study Pangea further later, but you will see how the mention of Alfred Wegener is going to be very, very important in lessons to come. As of right now, we are reviewing the layers of the earth, okay? And the layers of the earth, as we studied them in class, is the crust, the mantle, outer core, and inner core. I mentioned to you that some science books are going to mention crust, mantle, and core, which you should not be confused. You should not think that they forgot to mention one. Some science books, some printed media, some literature only suggest 3 layers. In our class, we learned them as 4. So it's the crust, the mantle, the outer core, and the inner core. Okay, and the crust, we learned that it is made up of 70% water and 30% land. Okay, we learned that the crust is 25 miles thick, that its fresh water comes from glaciers, ice caps, and snow. We learned that the crust is the layer where we live in. Okay, and the chemical composition of the crust is made up of silicon, aluminum, potassium, calcium, oxygen, and sodium. The crust is part of what we know, or scientists know, as the lithosphere. And actually, before moving on, if I take you back to this slide, you notice that there's a big E here. The big E is, remember that we spoke about mechanical properties, whether a layer was elastic or non-elastic. The crust moves. If you add pressure to it, it's going to move. It's going to react in some way. So the crust is elastic. If we move along to the mantle, it is made up of silicon and oxygen. We discussed that the mantle is the largest of the 4 layers. We discussed that the mantle is divided into the upper mantle and lower mantle. It is part of the asthenosphere. The mantle is responsible for the plate movement, okay? It contributes to over half of the Earth's mass. As heavy as Earth is, it's that heavy because the mantle is very, very heavy. And it is made up of hot, dense rocks. And the word dense you should associate with heavy, okay? And actually, before we move on, the mantle is also an elastic layer of the Earth. Next up is the core, just like some printed media suggest. Here you see 2 divisions, the outer core and inner core. The outer core is made up of liquid rock. It spins around the inner core, which is one of the first things we learned in this class about this layer. That spinning causes the Earth's magnetism. Temperature in the outer core ranges from 4,000 to 9,000 degrees Fahrenheit. And because of this very, very hot temperature, the core, the outer core is responsible for 1/5 of the heat we feel in this layer. Last but not least, we learned that the outer core is made up of nickel. Okay, inner core is made up of metallic iron, not 100% of metallic iron, but there's other elements in there. But for the most part, it's made up of metallic iron. Its temperature is roughly about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, and we learned that the inner core is 4,000 miles from the Earth's crust. This particular layer is non-elastic. It doesn't move. Okay, so that's why there's a big NE right here. Scientists know the layers of the earth in two different ways. One of our objectives this past week was, why is it that we call a layer of the earth two different things? Is it the lithosphere or is it called the crust? And whenever we're talking about the earth's structural layers, we've only learned two. I believe there's five, but in this class we only learned two: the lithosphere and asthenosphere. Whenever you and I talk about the Earth's layers as the crust, mantle, outer, and inner core, we're talking about the compositional. How is the Earth composed? What is it made out of? How many layers is it made out of? The compositional layers of the Earth are the crust, the mantle, the outer, and inner core. When you're talking about how the Earth is structured, okay, what's on top, what lies beneath, what moves this layer, which layer moves what layer, then you're talking about the Earth's structural layers, of which we only learned two. Once again, lithosphere and asthenosphere. The lithosphere is located on the crust region. This is the plate region. Okay, these plates that you're going to learn about later on this week, you're going to see that they are located in the crust, not on top, which is where we live, but right underneath us. Right underneath the crust, you will see the lithosphere area, okay? And this is a very strong, solid region. Obviously, these plates are a few hundred miles thick. The asthenosphere is located, or this zone is located on the upper mantle and almost all of the crust region, okay? The asthenosphere helps the lithosphere move. It is that cushion that I told you about that is responsible for whenever the plates move, that little cushion is the one that moves it, and that is the asthenosphere. This concludes today's presentation. Please feel free to go back and rewind and replay as many times as needed so that you are ready for tomorrow's test. Thank you very much and have a great evening.